Hello, I'm Miss Jackie, and this is Word for Brothers, dedicated to lifting up our black men where they belong, primarily as head of household, and talking about people in the Bible for real. If you please like, subscribe, and share. Now about Samson. Samson was chosen but confused. He came from a stable two-parent household raised in the fear and admonition of the Lord, but one of his glaring weaknesses was his bad taste in women. Not one decent relationship did this brother have. Let's call the roll. First, there was the young Philistine woman. She didn't have a name. His mama didn't like it. His daddy didn't like it. But Samson had to have her. Why? One look and he was hooked. They had one conversation. One. In one conversation, can you learn about future goals, children, housing, money, and of course God? Nope. However, for Samson, she looked good. So what was there to talk about? Anyway, the wedding party was mostly her people, who, by the way, weren't that keen on him in the first place. Samson challenged the men to a game, but in the end, he was the one who got played because Miss Philistine wound up marrying one of his would-be groomsmen. Next up, a no-name prostitute on the streets of Gaza. In the hierarchy of whores, she was at the bottom. This was no Rahab who could talk politics, bed, business, and beyond. Full of himself instead of the spirit, Samson let the nosy neighbors see him boldly go where no man of God should. Of course, by this time, the PIA, Philistine Intelligence Agency, began to hear about this messy man of God, living out loud, showing and telling them information on how they could take him down, not by might, but by Samson's compromised spirit. Finally, there's Delilah. Well, at least she had a name, but a kind of sort of shaky character. Some have called her a prostitute, but maybe she just needed to pay the rent. Unlike Samson, who does have a family, though he's distant from them, Delilah has none that we know of, especially a father. She doesn't have a past and no plans for a future, just living for the city. She lived in a border town not even 10 miles from where Samson was born. This time, Samson picked a woman from around the way, but like him, she had lost hers. Well, informants peeped the rulers about their relationship, however you want to define it. Samson takes one look at the Philistine woman and wants to marry her, but falls in love with Delilah and not a word. Maybe that first disaster made him gun-shy, who knows? But in reality, Samson never had to worry about pulling the trigger because Delilah wasn't sweating him about holy matrimony. His feelings don't seem to resonate with her. And when she's made an offer, she would have been a fool to refuse to help take Samson down. Well, what's love got to do with it? She'll never have to worry about rent again. And what was love for Samson? Sex? Or being able to relax with Delilah, who made him comfortable, who made it easy for him to be ratchet while still claiming to be righteous? Now, before the end of Samson's sad, sorry narrative, let's go back a bit to see how blind he was before the Philistines took out his eyes. Right before he was to marry Miss Philistine, Samson had challenged her family and friends to a bet based on a riddle they had to solve in a week. If they could solve it, they would have had to buy Samson some Nikes, jeans, nice polo shirts, cool linen suits, a whole new wardrobe. If they did, Samson would have had to do the same for all 30 of them. By the fourth day, they didn't have a clue and threatened Miss Philistine to get the answer out of Samson or they'd kill her and her family. Old girl got to whining and sobbing. I ain't even told my mama the answer, Samson said to her one day, but she just kept on until he couldn't take it anymore and gave her the answer. Now, here comes Delilah doing a rinse and repeat to get Samson to tell her the secret of his strength. How can you love me when you won't tell me, she cries over and over again. Now, shouldn't alarm bells have gone off in that dreadlocked head of his about women he says he wants to marry, women he says he loves, asking him things dear and deep to him when they haven't even said they like him? But if the bells did ring, they fell on deaf ears, because Samson's relationship with women all began with the lust of the eye and went no further. Never one to listen to reason, he wound up looking like a fool. Imagine a man of God looking and acting like a fool. Well, Delilah took the money and got out of Dodge without so much as a look back. In the end, as Samson plans to literally bring the house down on the Philistines, he doesn't ask God for forgiveness, for being sometimey instead of consistent in his calling, for playing God and himself cheap. Though his hair had grown back, Samson's maturity level hadn't grown an inch. He asked God to strengthen him this one last time to take vengeance on the Philistines for his 2 eyes, eyes that could see but never had a vision of whose he is and who God called him to be by his love, power, and spirit. And let us uplift and praise our men. They refuse to be that played out brother, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. They sit around complaining about no good women they insist on being with. At some point, no one wants to hear it, because it was never about that or the one who got away, but the one you never, ever looked for, including, and most of all, God. See you next time.